Hi everyone, posting my discussion for adolescent development. I'm going to focus more on drugs and alcohol in adolescence because that's where my area of, not expertise, but what I work in. For the most part, I've worked with Montfort House, which is a therapeutic community for adolescents. Primarily, a lot of them have drugs, alcohol, addictions, and struggles. The historical trends, as I was reading, overall have decreased over the past 25 years. But now, recently, harder drugs are being used at younger ages. So obviously everyone knows that the opioid epidemic is a major issue. And we're seeing younger and younger people falling into heroin or opioid addiction. The factors related to adolescent health that encourage that, or just, as we know, adolescents are in a difficult stage where things are changing. They're maturing, different hormones, things of that nature. So they're very impressionable, and depending on the group that they're with, could have some peer pressure to use different kinds of substances. Support systems are huge with that. If they have a poor support system or a lack of support system, or a support system that is using, usually leads to the adolescents picking up and using whatever substance that is, or using some other substance. Other factors, that come into play with drug and alcohol use for adolescents is obviously sexual behavior, truancy from school, things of that nature. Pertinent issues related to adolescent health, as we discussed, obviously drug addiction, tobacco use. Another one that I was, reading about through other avenues is a huge problem that we have is the bullying and school shootings, things that are going on, in our schools across the country. That's another epidemic that we have. So it's a difficult time for adolescents in all areas and all aspects. Biological and psychological implications of adolescent health risk behaviors. So for the biological, obviously we know that, certain adolescents are born with fetal alcohol syndrome, or to parents that have already been using or are currently using. They could be born opiate dependent, and then, the mother could be on methadone while she's pregnant, things of that nature. So there are some biological and genetic factors that could play into an adolescent's development, depending on what their parents had done before getting pregnant, while getting pregnant, and then after obviously giving birth. And then the psychological, obviously there's a plethora of different things that could happen. If you have a negative support system and you're abused emotionally, physically, sexually, those all play into the development of mental health, negative coping mechanisms, which would be substance abuse, and all those factors that lead to, unfortunately, adolescents choosing the wrong path and beginning on drug abuse, alcohol use, truancy from school, hanging out with the wrong people, things of that nature. Common causes of morbidity and mortality among children and adolescents. They go back to the same thing. Drug addiction, lack of support, negative choices that they make. I know with Montfort House, where I used to work, one of the main issues for morbidity, or unfortunately mortality, was either the drug abuse or gang affiliation. So adolescents that lack the proper support and things that they need, to feel safe and to fit in, unfortunately a lot of them find that in gangs. And gangs, primarily people in gangs, use drugs and alcohol, and it's, a combination of everything that unfortunately spirals adolescents out of control. Some health interventions, programs, public health policies in the United States. So as I've mentioned a few times, is that I used to work at Montfort House. That's an intervention that's used by the courts. So an adolescent that is caught up in the criminal justice system could be offered this technically treatment in lieu of incarceration. So they'll be assessed by a social worker from Montfort while they're incarcerated, and to see if they're eligible for the program. And it's a residential facility where they live in, they go to school, they do all that kind of stuff. They have PINs, they have substance abuse groups for adolescents. Phoenix House runs a inpatient 90-day substance abuse program in West Hampton. That's for adolescents. There's plenty of court-mandated therapeutic residences or different treatment programs that people could use, or adolescents can use, to try to conquer some of these issues and problems that arise from drug use, alcohol use, lack of support, gang mentality, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I went over my personal experiences. That's something that's close and related to me. I still work per diem for Montfort, so if I do get a call, I'm with this group. As I said in my first video, I work in the Yaphank and Riverhead Correctional Facility, so a lot of times I work with adolescents. Most of them are mandated to substance abuse treatment by the courts, so it's a difficult task because they're all over the place. They want to fit in. They want to be cool. They don't want to admit that they have a problem. They don't want to stop using drugs and alcohol at 17 or 18 because they see, other people that can use them responsibly. Well, not drugs, but, can socially drink and go to parties. And when that's taken from them, they're put on probation. It's a whole different issue. So it's really a lot of motivational interviewing and things of that nature to get them motivated to stay in treatment, to enter treatment, and to stay in treatment. But for our adolescents, I think one of the major issues is drug use, whether it be tobacco, alcohol, cocaine, opiates, marijuana, whatever the issue may be. Rates are rising, suicide rates are rising, overdose rates are rising, mental health rates, I believe, are rising in adolescents, if that's what I read correctly. And a lot of this is due to self-medicating with drugs and alcohol. Self-medicate because you don't feel well, you feel good for a short period of time, and then when you come down, you feel worse for a longer period of time. But hopefully with these interventions that we have and the things that are put in our community, we could start to combat this issue and get our adolescents on the right track. Thanks.